thank you so much. I'm really happy and grateful to be sitting here with you. Really, it's an honor.
I think the honor is ours, or mine. I don't want to speak for Jomo.
The honor is also mine.
Yeah. And it's great that you're here together so we can have a really nice chat here. First, I would like to start with a little conversation about Nico voice, of course, and if we can go straight into where and how did you come in contact with the story, the Nico voice, of course, the book by Colson Whitehead, but also the story of the Dozier School for Boys. So how did you come in contact with the story, and then from there the process into deciding that you wanted to make a film version of it?
Yeah, you're making me think about how sad it is that in U.S. culture, a large part of, I'd say, the main way in which these stories are ushered into national consciousness is by some sort of artwork or some sort of film or some sort of documentary. I think Colson Whitehead's novel, The Nickel Boys, is based on the Dozier School for Boys, which closed in 2011. And then bodies started to be exhumed from the property in 2013. It was aired locally on local news when some of the horrors came to light. But I didn't come across the story. I think very few people across the country really knew the extent to what happened or what happened at all until Colson decided to sort of create his own mythology around it and write the Nickel Boys book. I was fortunate enough to be asked to take a look at the book with my co-writing partner, Jocelyn Barnes. And a company named Plan B and Anonymous Content had the rights. They gave us a call, and we read the book and kind of went from there.
And Jomo?
Yeah, I was so kind of enamored with Hale County this evening, RaMell's first movie in 2018. So truly, when I saw that RaMell was thinking about narrative film, I wanted to be in that room. I wanted to meet the person who had made Hale County. I think it's such an incredible monument in cinema for me that, the idea of kind of going into battle with that person around something they were thinking of was incredibly exciting.
Yeah. So you took the challenge. And what a challenge it was, right? Because the entire film, I guess you get lots of questions about it at this point of view, first person, filmed, and it must have been like an endless source of challenges. You probably had to learn new techniques or throw away what you already knew to come up with new ways of achieving what you wanted, the results you were after. Can you tell us about these challenges, or maybe a story about a specific shot or sequence that was extremely hard to achieve?
I think everyone, genuinely, specifically the ones with actors. Some of the other shots, the ones where you can't quite tell who has the eyes or who the person is, in which, we were allowed to sort of float around a bit, or you're kind of flirting with more traditional camera language. So those were more just trying to nail something that felt poetic. I'll let Jomo share maybe our favorite story about which moment kind of altered the way in which the shooting would take place and the interactivity of the camera operator, the character, and the characters in front. But I will say one thing that was fascinating was the entire shooting process and the imagination process was, relatively unprecedented for both of us, that I think it allowed for a kind of a type of play and a type of indifference and a type of, if you don't have a goal post, when you're kicking a field goal, you just want to kick it as hard as you can. Makes it a lot easier because you don't know if you miss. In fact, you're your own referee. Yeah. And having, Jomo and I, we sort of building the rules for ourselves, made it way less of a challenge and more of a kind of adventure, But I'll let you share them.
Yeah, no, it was truly we had kind of designed every single scene as a one-shot. We knew we were going to edit, but we wanted the actors to be able to flow through the scene and kind of not have more artifice than they needed to with some of the camera systems, which meant that every single scene and every single shot in the movie is a trick shot, is a shot with heavy orchestration. And it's a funny thing in the movie where ideally the images feel organic, they feel poetic, they feel naturalistic. Yeah. But in the actual process of shooting them, could not be any more far from the truth, in the sense that, you know, for simple seeming shots, like there's a shot in the movie when our character Elwood is on a moving bus and he looks down and he sees a young girl kind of moving through underneath the chairs, and he points his head and looks underneath the chair to see her kind of moving underneath the chairs back to her parents. And, you know, the amount of cues between multiple people meant bringing a dolly onto a period bus. It meant using a remote head and then kind of dollying forward and booming down while an operator was changing the camera head to look underneath the chair. And it was a funny thing where if anyone is even a quarter of a second off, you could feel the apparatus. And ideally it needed to feel like a human body, which is something that we all are so deeply literate on knowing what it looks like to be inside our bodies. That's the only perspective that we've ever experienced on any given viewer. So there's a way in which truly, if anyone was off, even by a second, the shot just kind of wouldn't work, because it would feel like a film shot, and it would be a good shot in another movie. It would be a shot that would not break immersion in any way, shape, or form. But in our movie, it does feel like it would break immersion, because you would feel the technology rather than ideally feeling as if we truly just put a camera inside of the eye of these two boys. But there was a moment that I think RaMell is also getting at, which really kind of like changed it for us. It was the first day Ingenue Ellis, the actor who played Hattie, kind of came to set, and she's doing a scene at Nickel where she's talking to Elwood and she's having to give him some pretty devastating news. And so, you know, I had watched RaMell work with the actors and rehearse the scene, and I had been watching them. I had been watching Ethan, the actor who plays Elwood, kind of, you know, where his gaze was going, how it was playing out. And so when we were shooting the scene, I was operating handheld. And so in that way, it's, you know, the camera's taking on the emotions of Elwood. So in a lot of ways, my operation is both mimicking Ethan's performance and also me trying to kind of empathize and understand Elwood's position in real time. So there's a moment when Hattie's about to say this devastating news, and kind of me as Jomo and me as Jomo thinking about Elwood, you know, it's hard for me to look someone in the eye when I know that they're going to tell me something that is devastating them to have to say out loud. So right before Ingenue says that line that she's been building up to, my gaze drifts off and the camera's gaze drifts off. And in that moment, completely off script, Ingenue reaches out her hand and says, "Elwood, look at me, son." And there was a way in which the camera had to look back. The camera had to retain eye contact with her. She was asking for the return of the gaze. And I think that, you know, when cut was called, I remember running to RaMell with like, oh, this is why this feels so different, is that it isn't just that we're inside the scene. It's quite literally the camera can be forced to change based on an actor in the scene. The camera it isn't just inside the scene. The camera is fundamentally in relationship with the actors. It is a give and take, and the camera truly is a scene partner with them, and has to be as vulnerable as they are and has to truly embody that responsibility. I think that that kind of just flipped it over in another way, that it went from just necessarily kind of a visual point of view, but to something different that kind of was like growing organically between the camera, RaMell's direction, and the actors, which was really exciting to be a part of and kind of felt like nothing else I had ever worked on in my career.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like anything I've ever seen before. And now that you say it, it makes me reflect. You basically gave the camera a soul and feelings, and you were channeling the character as well as the actors in the movements and everything. I didn't reflect on that before, but it's beautiful where you say. I did think about it also a little bit when my favorite shot is when both are looking up to this reflective ceiling. And amazingly, it just feels like it's real, like these eyes are filming the scene, and the way it moves, you know, you can tell the camera moves as well as he's bouncing a little bit back and forwards. you get that exactly what you mean right there.
That's really funny, one too, because Ethan doesn't blink the entire time. Like, actually doesn't blink.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? And that's not what we're talking about. But I just remember, I don't think I noticed until the edit. I'm just like, and our editor is Nick Monser. Was like, Nick, like, I don't think, let's go to another take. And like, he just doesn't really, he took it quite, he took it quite literally, you know? But yeah, it's a beautiful example of this exchange that Jomo's talking about. Mm. Kind of.
Yeah. No, I think it's such a powerful image, being one of the few where you're getting to see both of them see themselves and to see one another like that. That's really special in the language of the movie, and it's something that, you know, RaMell and Nick are withholding from you. Again, I think that's kind of the power to me of the perspective. I think traditional cinema, to me, the way you interpret and break down an image is that if this was shot maybe more traditionally, my interaction with the movie is me as Jomo trying to read Ethan's face to understand what would Elwood be feeling in any given moment of the movie. And I think because of the perspective, because you can't see Ethan, you cannot see Elwood's face, you're forced to ask yourself a harder question, which is, how would I feel if I was Elwood? Yeah. I wonder how Elwood's feeling, and where the camera's moving, how does that express his feeling? How does that express his comfort or discomfort in a space, and why is he uncomfortable or uncomfortable? And would I be comfortable or uncomfortable? And what makes that different? I think that those questions, I think, are really exciting. Ideally to us, and the way we were always talking about it, is that we wanted it to be immersive. We wanted the audience to be pulled into this perspective and have to figure that out for themselves, you know, in a way be implicated by the very real and crushing history that's attached to these gazes and these boys moving through a very hostile environment, but also to ask themselves the question of, what would you do if you were in the body of a black boy in a fundamentally hostile space and a hostile legal system that surrounded them? Felt really special.
Yeah, you're also forced to read the expressions of others as it relates to how you're making them feel, or how they're trying to sort of impose a feeling on you. And that is one of the most fundamental things about looking out of our own heads, is that our reality is shaped by the way in which people reflect back to us who we are. And our emotional states are, of course, at least in the U.S., skin complexion, all of those elements, this interactivity that Jomo's talking about, become a lot more evident when you're not allowed to, be a voyeur to two other people's interactions, and use the way in which they're interacting as a way to dislocate yourself from complicity.
Yeah. There's not such distance.
Yeah.
You are part of it, and you are forced to leave it, you were there and experiencing. You were the recipient of all those treatments, words, scenarios. I've been thinking. I believe that when an artist practices the art of craftsmanship with such passion, the way I perceive you do, and the motivations behind your creations go beyond the simple intention of just creating entertainment or just doing something because you're good at it or because you like it. And I know you're very faceted persons as creators, as creative people, artists. I know you've been playing basketball, you've been into photography, filming, and other sorts of art, but probably you're also very good in the kitchen cooking and other things. So you are creators in soul. And I would like to know, what is your mission in doing what you do? What are the motivations at the core of your creations?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because, I'm exactly unsure. I've thought about this a lot, why, I know that there's something core to my reality that is race, in the way in which, it's been it's overdetermined the lives of people. But I wonder, yeah, what other modes of making or what other things would be central to my artistic practice if I were to be an artist of a different making, I guess. And I'm unsure. I think I've come to the conclusion that I like to work, and you need things to work towards and about, and there's certain elements that rise the to like the concentrated occasion in one's life. And I think playing basketball, I realized that, people had a certain understanding of what it meant to be a basketball player. And coming in contact with them and them knowing I played basketball gave them a certain purchase on my image and a certain purchase on my future that then pushed me towards that. And coming to art and coming to photography and thinking about the image as knowledge production and starting to understand the relationship between, sociology and the social sciences and fieldwork and the history of photography in the South and the documentary tradition and these ways of producing images that precede people, I realized that the same thing was the case for almost everything in the world. And photography and film wore these, I like to call it the technology of racism. They are this intersection of deep, deep, deep culture, of deep exporting of the psychological state and the intent of the person who's the filmer, but also reflecting quite literally only the analysis potential of the person who's in front of the image. Just all of these like incredibly deep things. And so it seemed to me, based on the way in which the U.S. had been organized and the way I find myself in the U.S., that energy should be put towards the well-being of those who are affected very similarly to myself, which is a really, really, really long answer. I've never said it before. It's really confusing too. I'm sorry. If you ask yourself very seriously, it's like, why not this? Why not this? Why not this? Why not this? I guess I don't have a great answer for it, but I wonder what you feel like. How you feel, Jomo, about that?
That is a intensely hard question.
Right?
Your mission.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am so fundamentally confused by the process of being human. I do not understand it, and I think that I aim to try to work on projects and give of myself to projects that allow me an opportunity to try to understand it a little bit more, to understand how complicated, both how simple it is and how complicated it is, and to witness and be witnessed by the work. Yeah, I think it's to try to, again, understand some aspect of humanity before I die.
And convey that, no?
Yeah.
Once you've discovered it, share it for others. So.
And I think that that's the thing, and I think that that's true of this movie too, is that the work itself is an exploration. It is. I never take it as I have any answers. I take the work to be itself looking at someone trying to figure something out, and maybe some parts of that work, maybe some parts of that don't work, but it's the struggle of trying to be human that I think defines humanity. And so, yeah, ideally it's in the work. I think the attempt to express it is itself the work, I guess.
Yeah, I think I have a better answer now. Thanks, Jomo. I think it's to have a genuine dialogue with the unknown, to have a genuine exchange, and dare I say, dialectical conversation with what's mysterious about the world and what's mysterious, to Jomo's point, about being human. I think there's something fundamentally terrifying when you read things and you hear people talk and you're out in the world and everyone's just so sure about everything. This is the way the world is. This is what they said. This is what they meant. This is how you interpret this. This is how I feel. And to Jomo's point, I desire to take back what I say almost every day, all the time, to make it more clear or to get to what I really meant, because it's very difficult to express. And so to have the medium of photography and film, the mediums, and have that be centered around knowledge production, we can be engaged with the flux.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Off the record, what's your favorite movie of all times?
Oh,
Impossible. Easy. Happy Feet and March of the Penguins.
Hey, both? Well, one.